In this episode, I speak with podcast host and health coach Kay Dorelus. Key points addressed were Kay's podcast that is directly informed by her work in health and fasting coaching that she does, both aptly named Good Girl Gone OMAD. We also unpack a plethora of myths as well as helpful techniques and resources Kay arms her fasting communities with all of her endeavors. Stay tuned for my fascinating talk with Kay Dorelus. My name is Patricia Kathleen, and this series features interviews and conversations I conduct with experts from medicine and science to health and humanitarian arenas in an effort to explore the world of fasting from a variety of angles. This dialogue is meant to develop a more complete story about the information, research, personal stories, and culture in and around the science and lifestyle of fasting. If you're enjoying this podcast, be sure to check out our subsequent series that dive deep into specific areas such as founders and entrepreneurs, vegan life, and roundtable topics. They can be found on our website, patriciakathleen.com, where you can also join our newsletter. You can also subscribe to all of our series on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and YouTube. Thanks for listening. Now let's start the conversation. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. I am your host, Patricia, and today I am so happy to be sitting down with Kay Dorelus. Kay is a podcast host and health coach. You can find out more on her website regarding everything we speak about today at www.goodgirlgoneomad.com. Really quickly, that's GOODGIRLGONEOMAD.com. Welcome, Kay.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today.
Me too. I'm excited. We were talking off the air, and I can't wait to kind of climb through what you're doing. You've got something happening in a couple of days that I can't wait to.
Yes.
For everyone listening who might be new to the podcast, I will read a quick bio on Kay before I start peppering her with questions. But before I read that, let me go ahead and give you a roadmap for the line in which today's inquiry will follow. We'll first look at asking Kay to fully more develop her own personal history with fasting and her narrative therein, and her just everything that she does regarding it. And then we'll look at unpacking terms that might seem rote. However, everyone has their own personal definition in regards to fasting. Namely, we'll look at OMAD, which Kay has extensive history with, as well as some of the other more unknown or less used terms such as autophagy, intermittent fasting, long day fastings, different terms, different forms of fast that she uses. We'll unpack all of those terms as she defines them. And then we'll turn to looking at Good Girl Gone OMAD, the website, all of her services, the coaching that Kay does within that, the different groups that she runs, and some of the things coming up, the different kind of public fasts and group fasts that she runs. Then we'll turn to answering our rapid fire questions. These are ones that you guys have written into our audience members regarding just questions. We ascribe each of those an expert voice, and we've collected 12 for Kay to answer. For those of you that have kind of reached out and wanted health coaches and people like that to be asked certain lines of inquiry. So as promised, before we get started peppering her with questions, a quick bio. Kay Dorelus is the creator and breakthrough influencer behind Good Girl Gone OMAD, a popular podcast, newsletter, and exclusive private group. She is an intermittent lifestyle inspiration for women, known for leading challenges for hundreds of women nationally and internationally. She has overcome her own personal battles with Crohn's disease, asthma, and glaucoma, and has set out to inspire the everyday woman to be the master of her own health and happiness through intermittent fasting and other wellness practices. So, Kay, I love that because it really gives us a good background. And I know that when people hit your site, it becomes very clear that you're very, very adept in OMAD in particular, due to your own personal experience. But I'm hoping before we get started asking you about all of your services and coaching and things like that, can you draw us a more cohesive understanding of where your own personal history with fasting has come from and leading it to where you are right now?
Yeah, it's been kind of a rocky road. So, to try to make a very long history short, I I initially started battling with Crohn's disease at the age of 7, right? And there are very clear things that I remember. There's a lot of stuff that I don't remember about having Crohn's disease. I know that it was severe. I know that I talked to gastroenterologists that mentioned things to me about diet and being conscious of, what I ate, I never really had to deal with weight gain when I was younger. It was really just the chronic disease. And so I kind of just ate whatever I wanted to outside of having these periodic episodes, these inflammations, every 7 years that would leave me in the hospital. So I never really had to understand what food meant to me or diet. I was very disconnected until I was pregnant. I got pregnant, normal song and dance. I wanted to have my baby, snatch my body back, and keep moving. That body never came back. That was the first instance as a grown woman where I was like, oh, wow, I am not happy with my body. It's not functioning right. It doesn't look right. And so I was like, I'll just join a gym and maybe eat some greens, maybe try to pay more attention to my intake. And it didn't work over 6 years. Um, and it just became seeing a professional after another professional, a trainer after another trainer. And I'm like, how is this not moving the needle? How am I able to put 100% into eating, into monitoring what I ate, tracking my calories, um, giving 100% at the gym, waking up at 4 o'clock despite having a newborn, and nothing is changing until I went to see a nutritionist. Loved her, but she took a look at my very hectic motherly schedule and she's like, you basically don't eat. I drink coffee and I eat handfuls of popcorn in between commuting and taking care of myself and my family. And she said one thing that was probably the impetus on doing intermittent fasting. She says, okay, you have a very hectic schedule and you don't really eat. So in order to lose this weight that you're trying to lose, I need you to eat 6 meals a day. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. You want me to consume more calories in order to lose the weight that I'm struggling to lose? And something hit me. It was like, just try not eating. At first, for me, it was try not eating, try starvation at this point, because I was that desperate after trying to lose this weight and get back on top of my health after 6 years.
Yeah.
Once I started to see changes in my body after about like 2 months of trying 16-8, for example, I was like, okay, wow, like something is working here that did not work over 6 years. I need to understand why. And so they kind of led me down this path to really understand it's not the food. And that's one of the things that I love about intermittent fasting. I kept researching. I saw the transformational pictures that a lot of people see that I post or, others post. And I'm like, there's no way. Like, there's no way these people are not hangry, angry, losing all this weight. It must be Photoshop. Um, but the one thing that really hooked me about intermittent fasting that I didn't hear from any other like diet that I came across was it's not what you eat, it's when you eat. So I'm the poster child of being the very stubborn client of not wanting to change what I ate, firing nutritionists that said I had to give up coffee, firing nutritionists that mentioned I have to stop eating out at restaurants. And I'm like, what, like, are you guys sure about this? Like, are you sure I don't have to change what I eat? Because I love my chicken sandwiches, my tacos, my fried rice. I love things that most people tell me do not eat if I'm trying to go after this goal. And so I put it to the test. I had my hamburgers, I had all those types of food, and I was still not able to feel guilty about my food. I was still able to enjoy these foods. And then the weight just kept coming off. And I was living my own experiment at that point. Even being knowledgeable about other diets and other ways to eat, I really wanted to just try to see if this thing was as true as what people were making it out to be. And once I was like, oh, this is a thing, I jumped in with like 2 feet head first.
So, and I want to climb into that. Before we do, it sounds like you were playing around with some different terms yourself. And I love this kind of internal dialogue that led you on the right path. I myself, I love her to death. She was a wonderful human being, but I've had 2 personal trainers in my life, and they both prescribed that I eat 6 to 10 times a day. And I think it still happens in that community a great deal with bodybuilding, though we have interviewed, incredible bodybuilders who fast,
Yeah.
and the research reaches to the other area. They are like the strongholds of people that are just like, you have to eat nonstop, which I feel like all those people are going to get type 2 diabetes momentarily, just taxing that pancreas over and over. But I want to climb into really quickly some terms before we get further into your own kind of personal story and your clients with fasting. How do you define the term just fasting? What does it mean personally to you when you hear that word?
So fasting for me, particularly, is just abstaining from calories. I try not to overly complicate it. I know that we kind of live in a world when you say the word fasting, it's like, starvation, right? But it's literally just maybe going an extra. To be honest, the way that I tried it was just incrementally going longer without food. Like that is what I tell my clients. It's like, okay, take the phrase out of it, take the pressure off of the fasting. How long do you normally go between meals? They might say 5 hours. Okay, tomorrow, let's try 5 hours and 30 minutes. And it's literally just going a little bit longer without calories. And that can be from beverages or that can be from food, but it's some abstinence of not eating.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So would you put people, what about tea? What about coffee? What about non-caloric drinks? Do you allow you
Oh, absolutely.
relaxed with it enough that those things are permissible?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, weight loss was the number one priority in the beginning. So I was very like, okay, if I'm going to do this lifestyle, I don't want to jeopardize my 16 hours by accidentally, ingesting something that can throw me out of this fasted state. So coffee, love coffee, cannot go without coffee. um, Tea, I tend to drink a lot of green tea, black tea occasionally if I'm tired of the green tea. And and sometimes I'll do ACV. Shots of ACV is pretty popular within our culture, but I just try to stay far away from those things. Sparkling water and water is just that's just a necessary thing. Like it just goes without saying. I don't do any sort of dry fasting. I will never say never, but it doesn't strike me as the smartest thing to do personally.
Yeah, it's next level, right? And dry,
Yeah.
those of you listening, is going without water.
Yeah.
In addition to liquids and well, there's hard dry and there's soft dry. I've been told that people who are hard dry fasters don't even shower. There's no absorption of water whatsoever.
I've recently read that too, and that is extreme to some.
It's a hard no. If I'm surfing and it's not happening. Um, with the ACV, you are referring to, I'm assuming, apple cider vinegar, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And that's a whole nother, a lot of fasters get into the connections. There's all sorts of sister, I think, aspects and techniques that people use. And I'll leave that one kind of where it goes unless we have time to pick it back up again.
Yeah.
How would you define the term OMAD and what does it stand for?
OMAD, I love it. It's an acronym. It's almost hard to mess up. It stands for one meal a day. So OMAD stands for one meal a day. The way that it's defined, though, in our culture, because when you kind of get into all the different methods of fasting, um, it kind of breaks down into a 24-hour day. So you would fast for 23 hours, and then the hour that's left over within that 24-hour period, you eat. So you fast for 23 hours, you eat for 1 hour, taking all your meals, nutrition, and calories within 60 minutes.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then getting into some of the other ones, kind of going along that same route, would you define 16-8 as fasting for 16 and eating for the 8 hour window?
Yep, fasting for 16 and eating for 8. So a lot of people love that because they can kind of like for me, that was like the thing. I'm like, okay, great. I don't have to give up my breakfast food. I could still have like my bacon, my eggs, my toast, plus lunch, plus dinner. Like it's a win-win.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like a gateway, right? A lot of people
Yes, it is a game. It's
easily.
total game.
Okay. And then 48, 72, 96, and extended day fasts. What do these mean to you? And who do you think should be practicing them?
So anything beyond 24 hours or 23 per se is extended fasting. Like that to me is just like a blanketed statement. Um, that type of fasting comes with a certain mindset. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for people that feel like they're going to die without food. It's really for people that are trying to rest their gut. I talk to a lot of my audience about the difference between fasting for weight loss and fasting for gut rest. And so you can totally achieve weight loss success like I did. Most of my pictures that people see of me, mostly 16-8 and OMAD, like nothing really extreme, didn't give up too much. I just happen to love all the effects that go with fasting beyond 24 hours. So between one like 25 to 72, to me, it's all the same. It's just a higher number.
Absolutely. What are,
Yeah.
because you dropped that breadcrumb, I've got to pick it up. What are some of your favorite? I'm the same way. I came into actually extended fasting more for like a lot of the mental and cognitive benefits that happen in those longer fasts. And I know that I have a lot of uh, colleagues in the academic community that are very much so the same way. There's many people think that fasting is just for disease or weight loss, and I think that over centuries ago there were philosophers and people that were coming at it for the mental cognition
Yes.
enhancements that have been realized long before like latter day medicine. But for you
Mhm.
personally, what are some of the benefits? Are you talking about autophagy, or are you talking about autophagy and other things? What are these like wonderful benefits that you feel you're getting from extended day fasts?
Well, is just so autophagy is definitely at the highest of my priority, right? So when I think about autophagy, it's literally translates into self-eating. So the cells without energy start to kind of envelop, like they'll pick apart their own cells, the broken, disease-causing, inflammatory pieces of the cell, eat itself, and then generate new cell growth. So when I think about like neurodegenerative diseases, when I think about things that I could be doing right now for my future self, like that to me is a lot more golden than the weight loss. And so I love being able to say, like, I might not be able to control everything, but I do feel like I'm doing something so that I can be, you know, very vibrant when I'm old and gray.
Yeah.
So autophagy is number one priority. The mental clarity. So I always tell people, like, you don't really know your true self, like your true optimal self, until you've either done a fast with me or you've gone longer without fasting. We are so driven with our current culture diet of a lot of glucose even hidden in some of these things that we feel like are most healthy. And so our body is just running on sugar, which it's designed to do. But when you switch over to fat burning, so when you're fasting and your body switches to fat burning, that's like the premium fuel. That's like the fuel that you want powering all of your vehicles, all of yourself, because you're just elevating who you are. And so like the thoughts, the neural connections, the type of peacefulness and serenity that people get, the natural energy. Like I used to be like a cup, well, 2 cups a day person for coffee. Like hands down, I could not exist without coffee. It wasn't until like I got into fasting consistently where I'm just like, I like the taste of coffee, but now I don't need it because this natural energy it's not even the same as coffee. It replaces it's like it's better. The energy that you get is just naturally feel like that's how your body is designed to run, not with ingesting food all day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you get into some of those concepts on your podcast. I want to turn to that now. Good Girl Gone OMAD. Is that the name of your podcast? It's
It is. It's the name of my website, my social media handle, and my podcast.
That's the dream. Don't and that's the
I
best.
know.
When you start to stray, right? It's when everyone loses you. So
Yeah.
podcast, I've listened to a couple. I listened to a couple of older ones, and then your most recent one. You get into succinctly like their advice, right? The curation. Do you ever interview people, or does it usually come from advice? And where are you deriving the pieces of advice that you speak to? Is it from clients that have a lot of questions? How are you developing that curriculum in which you speak to?
One thing that I wanted to make sure that I accomplished, especially like once I started to like become a nerd, well, I'm always a nerd, but become a nerd about intermittent fasting was to make it relatable to most people. Like to me, I want to tell the whole world, not only tell them, but sell them on it. And so, one thing I know about science, like just not a lot of people can do the science thing. And so, what I do with my podcast is I go back and forth. It's almost like table tennis between the scientific, fact based, like inner workings of your body with some funny narratives about my life, maybe about examples that I can draw from clients. And so I just start to just kind of live my life and kind of tell you, like, this is a lifestyle. So it's one thing to just get the basics, like, I need to fast for 16 hours in order to see results or in order to be healthy. But, what happens, 3 months down the line, a couple months down the line? And that's where most people start to come back to my episodes because they're like, oh, well, I'm in a place in my life where I need to understand about like how to make this easier. Like the pressure is coming on. So I recently did an episode about like how to train your brain to fast because right at, I'd say April, my messages were filled with like, I cannot stop eating. I've been quarantined or I've been at home, stuck at home for a couple weeks, and the refrigerator is right there. The pantry is right there. And I've just lost my way when it comes to fasting. And it's not really the willpower or the temptation. It's really about your focus. And so I try to use myself as an example. But I also try to use the science to help people say, like, it was never really you. The weight loss, unless you have some sort of chronic condition, it's not really the food. It's not really you. It's using fasting as a management tool and using your brain to make it easier. And the episodes just start to make that come to life for people in this lifestyle.
Yeah. Do you ever look towards things that your clients are having most difficulty with, or it sounds like it kind of comes to be organically as you get your inbox filled with things. Have you ever kind of do you ever hone into one specific group? So I'm thinking, before COVID, people who work from home, but now that's everybody, or a great deal of people, but like young mothers or certain age groups, you came into it, as a young mother, that you kind of direct your response towards, or even some of your coaching techniques that you do, like with your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that I'm starting to notice about my audience base is that we are getting older. We're trying to manage so much, and so to be able to speak to them about how to manage their condition along with living this intermittent fasting lifestyle will be extremely helpful for them. A lot of people that follow me can't fully jump in with 2 feet because they are having to take medication. They are trying to find the right supplements. So there's certain things about how easy it is to kind of navigate intermittent fasting when it comes to like Good Girl Gone OMAD. But then there's this other kind of lifestyle where it's like, I got a lot of things going on. Like I got a lot of conditions that, my doctor mentioned that they don't necessarily tell me until, I might ask, or they might have a question. I'm like, well, why are you asking me that question? And they're like, well, I have high blood pressure. Okay. Like now we need to have a conversation about not only how you eat, but like, how does that impact your condition right now? Like, how do you really better that? Like, do you feel capable enough that you're living a lifestyle to eradicate, that diagnosis? Um, and so, yeah, I try to pull as much, without being, so prescriptive or stepping on toes or making people second guess their professional advisor. But a lot of that is, drawn from my personal experience, from theirs, and most of my episodes are written in a fasted state.
Nice. I love That's really cool.
Yep.
That's another thing I've never heard anyone talk about, but I don't think I'm by any means expert with fasting, but I've been practicing it, as most of the people who listen to this series know and who follow me on my other series, for the better part of like 3 years on and off with OMAD and different versions of it. But hearing people speak from a fasted state or actually watching information when you're fasting, there is some weird cognition development for me, or connection, where it's such a great boost. And it really ties into what I want to talk about next, which is on your website, you have a 3-day fasting challenge. And I've never done anything like this. And it's because I think I started my fasting off before the universe kind of blew up, a couple of years ago, with fasting. And I felt like I was all alone sometimes. But there's this group thing, and it taps into exactly what I found the most encouragement. So I would just watch YouTube or listen to podcasts based on fasting while I was fasting, because there was some accompaniment that I think most of the human spirit needs when it's undergoing anything. And so I love the idea that you have this fasting group challenge, and it starts in a couple of days. So I'm hoping you can tell us like about it and what you intend it to be and how people can look into it.
Absolutely. Like I mean, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because till this day, there are people that know me in real life that watch me online, either what I post or when I post before and afters, for example, that still are like, that's not for me. Like, I am not interested, that think that I'm being extreme. Real people that I can reach out and touch if it wasn't for COVID. And so I started this journey, what it feels like, a very a very lonely state, which for me is fine. I'm naturally introverted. But it wasn't until I started to get a little bit more senior in my experience where I was like, I think I kind of want to try something a little longer, and I don't want to do it by myself. Like literally that was the thought that I had. And then I said, well, a lot of people are interested. I wonder if anybody else is, following me or listening to me that will want to try this as well. So I mentioned it on my podcast. I posted about it on my social media, and I was just like literally blown away. Everybody's like, yes, I'm going to do this with you. And so I said, okay, well, we're going to do this. We're on social media. There's algorithms. There are things that will prevent me from really connecting with you guys. So why not form a group called 3-Day Fasting Challenge? And so I get people from all over the world. When I say all over the world, like I'm literally blown away by the reach of internet, like just fascinated, because I get to meet people in Australia, in Switzerland, in Japan, in New Zealand, in Colombia, Mexico, Las Vegas, California, New York, New Jersey, Arizona, Canada, Mexico, everywhere. And we're all getting together for one purpose. And one thing that I love about my group, they're so, so supportive. Um, they're like, we're so welcoming and we're growing. But they are so driven, like by themselves. So, you kind of put a task out there for some people that otherwise would think that they're not capable, right? And so a lot of people ask me, okay, Kay, like you do these fasting challenges, why not 36 hours or why not 48 hours? Most of the people that follow me have dipped their toe in the water a little bit with fasting. So I'm not too much dealing with like brand spanking new to intermittent fasting. So these people, they fasted a couple times in the higher numbers, and they just need that extra accountability, that extra support. And it just kind of paints this community where we are doing something for ourselves that we might not have been able to accomplish if it wasn't for somebody directly looking out for them. And so a lot of us, myself included, a lot of us don't have a lot of close connections where people are doing the same thing. I live in a household, I'm the only intermittent faster in my household. So I love being able to say, you guys aren't fasting with me here, let me jump to my, couple hundred, couple thousand community, and, let's do this. So that's it's amazing. It's been growing, and it's something that I plan to continue doing.
Yeah, it's exciting. I like the idea of that. And I think that kind of community can serve, like I said, benefits that you don't really consider. You know, even I myself as well, I like to kind of go through a lot of things alone, that kind of personality, particularly difficult things. But there is something about, that accompaniment of just hearing, reiterating people going through it, or just hearing more information or new perspectives that kind of gets you over, some of those, I call them mental crises. I don't believe that they're real. I think no matter how experienced with fasting I am, and it's all individualized, everyone has their own personal journey. It's like childbirth in that way. But
Mhm.
there are these moments where during every fast, it's around a certain time where I start to question, like, is this really the right time to, maybe I should have some food, these all of these
Conversations.
ridiculous within oneself. And I think that it helps kind of quiet some of that out.
You know,
To-
I call
Mhm.
no, I call my community warriors because it's almost like to the point where, most people, and they might not even realize it, but if they're listening, they can hear what I think about them. I think the world of them. Like, most people don't necessarily think that they're living like a vibrant life, right? Like, unless you are a surfer or a mountain climber or a mountain biker or somebody that kind of lives life like right on the edge. So what I was mentioning was these people that come into my communities, whether they realize it or not, they are like warriors. They are living life out loud. They are very vibrant. Just, if even if they have like a office career, they're just as vibrant as that surfer, as that mountain biker, because they start to kind of stray away from like, I need food, removing the crutch, re-establishing that relationship with food and that relationship with cravings, and not thinking that you're gonna die.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that hearing that, and having other people experience it in a group is powerful. I want to turn now. We're running in on time, and I want to turn to our rapid fire questions for people that have written in that really want a coach's perspective and someone who's had a lot of experience with fasting. So I'm just going to jump right in. And the first one is, what kinds of fasts have you tried?
Feel like I've tried them all. So 16/8 is obviously the gateway, right? Where you fast for 16 hours, eat for 8. I absolutely love warrior diet. So one thing that people don't know is there's a warrior diet. And so warriors, when you fast for 20 hours, excuse me, you fast for 20 hours and you eat for 4. And so within that diet, the way that it was started, discovered or developed, was that you can actually eat. And so I do fasting, and I don't necessarily believe in consuming calories, but that is one method where you can consume a certain type of food, nuts, berries, things like that. Um, Obviously, one meal a day. Love that. I fast for 23 hours. I eat for one. And then I just jump straight into fasting for 72 hours, or that 3-day fasting challenge that I host.
Have you gone longer than 3 days before? Or is that your max?
Not on purpose.
Aha.
So I was hospitalized where I needed to, well, I needed to, but I ended up fasting for 5, but that doesn't count. So yes, only 3 days.
I see. All right. What the next one is? What are the most common misconceptions about fasting that you hear from most people or your clients or anyone involved in the community or outside of it?
Oh God, the number one that just comes to mind is that I'm starving myself and that my body is going to hold on to food. And that's one misconception that I, bought into for a very long time, that since my body is so searching for that source of food, that it's just going to hold on to all the fat that I'm trying to lose. And that is absolutely untrue. Another misconception that I think that people actually don't realize, and one of the things that I try to always push out, is that it's not about the calories. And so a lot of people are like, well, you're not eating food and you're losing weight, it's because you're not eating all the calories. And I'm like, I could probably show you my receipts where I'm probably am consuming the normal amount of calories, and it's not a calories in, calories out type of diet or type of eating style. It is literally a hormone management system And so when you're losing weight, when your body is inflamed, when you're dealing with certain conditions, lack of sleep, headaches, high blood pressure, glucose out of control, it's not the food, it's your body's mismanagement of hormones. And so once you get that all in check, and fasting is a awesome tool to do that, then all the other stuff will shake out. And so they kind of put intermittent fasting in a box. It's like, I'm not eating for a certain amount of hours. And it's like, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the proof is in the pudding. The second you do it, I think you can kind of become very convinced, of all of those
Most people.
you mentioned. Yeah, eating 6 times a day, as well as like starving yourself, those things kind of fall by the wayside really quickly. What is the hardest aspect of fasting for you personally and professionally?
I feel like the hardest thing about fasting is probably one and the same, whether it's professionally or personally. And I covered this before in one of my podcasts, is the social part, the people part. So right now it's a little bit easier because we're all at home. Like I don't have to explain myself. But the moment I go out and I'm fasting for 20, 23 hours, which means most of my interactions with people are, they're asking me, would you like something to eat? Or let's go out to a restaurant. Or how about we eat this? Or did you see the donuts on the table? Like it's always about food. So navigating social environments when it comes to intermittent fasting is hands down the hardest part of this lifestyle, because people are very judgmental. They think that you're trying to harm yourself. They borderline categorize myself and others of having an eating disorder. That's another misconception that I get. And so I, treat intermittent fasting like Fight Club, is that you just don't talk about it. That's one major thing. And, whether people say, well, I don't want to live a lie, it's up to you. But most times I tell people, hey, you don't have to lie. Just say, I'm not hungry right now, because you're not. You're not. That's one tool that you can use to say, like, you don't have to say, I'm intermittent fasting and it's 6. Like, you don't have to do the whole song and dance for people. They don't need to know. Just say, not right now, and just keep moving.
Absolutely. That's great advice, actually. Not even opening that dialogue is really nice. What is your stance on diet sodas and the artificial sweeteners? I feel like this really divides the community. There are,
It is.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a divisive conversation. I think, to me, all sugar extracted from its natural source is not good for the body. But I do know that we're in a culture of manufactured and processed foods. And so I think that it should be avoided. But when it can, should you be able to enjoy like one or two? Yeah, I think so. Like I think it's okay if you develop a habit. um then you have to go see somebody. Then you have to kind of understand, because it might be the cause of some of the other things that you're dealing with. But a diet soda here and there is not going to be the thing that throws you.
Yeah,
Sorry to say.
it's a good point. And I like
Yeah.
your approach of kind of, this moderation aspect too. This like, it's not the end of the world, because I think a lot of fasters can get really militant, and that's
Yes.
people who are just coming to the industry. What do you think about fasting personalities currently online? Do you follow or disagree with any of them? There's some kind of famous ones. I'm not sure if you're aware. One of the really famous ones that divides the community is Cole. He's from Canada. He has the snake juice.
Yeah.
He's I've spoken to a lot of people that call him, I mean, clearly he's got a shtick that he's doing to kind of grab
Mhm.
people's opinions, but he said a lot of misogynist things. He's done a lot of things. But how do you feel about like any of the personalities out there? Do you follow any personally? Do you think that some are better than others? And if so, why?
I do think so. I follow as many as I can. I am just one person that loves polarizing opinion. So if you look at my followers, like I follow people that absolutely think that I live a life of an eating disorder, as well as people that think just like me. Um, I do think that we need those types of personalities out there, whether they are for marketing or whether they truly believe in, what they're saying, because everybody is just different. Like nobody is, yes, I do think everybody should fast at some point in their life, but their approach and their perspective and the knowledge that they bring is for a certain type of community, just like Good Girl Gone OMAD is for a certain type of community. So I even follow people that love veganism and people that love, eating like a carnivore, and they talk about each other, back and forth. And I just think that just makes a really colorful, opinion. It just makes a really colorful world. Um, I think that most people should go out there and find these types of personalities and just form an opinion on their own. That's what I just hope most people get out of my podcast, right? Just, hey, I heard this information. She seems to be living what she's talking. Let me do a little bit more research on my own so that way I can start to adopt those healthy practices for my life. And so I don't think that one is better than the other, one is more right unless they're doing scientific based human fact research. We're just, a couple people just trying to convince other people to get healthy and do it in a certain way. So
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of people that write in that ask about your go-to. Did you have a book or a platform or any kind of media source that helped you educate yourself or continues to help you educate yourself in regards to fasting?
yeah, I once I started to want to understand a lot more, I did some research and I ended up buying the Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung. I've read that book 4 times. Absolutely love it. And one of the things, I just love the fact that he's a doctor. So when I think about all the medical practitioners that I've had a chance of seeing in my life, where I'm like, nobody's told me about this, like I had to read it for myself. So I'm glad he has this published book.
Yeah.
Then the way that he talks is so matter of fact. Like it's not it doesn't get too heady. It doesn't get too, it's kind of speaking above your level. He just does things in a way that's just like, why didn't I think about the capabilities of my body in this way? And so I read that book back to front because he kind of tackles, the manufacturing industry, the medical industry, the pharma industry, all within one source where I'm just like, this is everything that I've been dealing with. Plus, is backed by clients that he helps through diabetes and obesity. So, I that was the one source where I always flip to if I have any sort of questions or concerns.
Yeah, I find that to be kind of the Bible for most people I speak to as well regarding fasting. And then he's got I don't know if she was a protege or she was always an assistant, but now in her own right, Megan Ramos,
Mm.
a similar kind of following. And they're seen to be kind of straight shooters that don't have like a dog in the fight. They're just there for the science, which is
Right.
interesting. What are your top sabotages for fasting for you or your clients? So stress or anything like you're mentioning, social engagements. What are the kind of the top saboteurs?
Oh, well, yeah, for sure, social, right? But I think one thing that people don't realize about when we flip the calories and we flip the idea of the eating and we talk about it on a hormonal level, like the importance of sleep. um, Beyond. Like I've done many a test on myself and a few of my clients where I'm like, keep everything the same this week. What I want you to do is go to bed an hour earlier. Like you don't even have to go to sleep. Just lay flat in a bed, rest, and you will be surprised at how, yeah, you'll get the energy, right? But the weight loss that comes off, it's all interconnected. We try to treat our bodies like it's this, oh, my arm hurts and my head hurts and I got to take, like, it's all one interconnected being. And so when you extract sleep, when you extract the parasympathetic nervous system from, feeding who you are in a waking state, you're missing the entire boat. And so what I try to hone in and what I try to help people understand, and I'll continue to do so in the very near future, is to go to bed. Like literally, that is a part of your fasting lifestyle. That is a part of your fasting routine. That is a part of your health program, is to get some sleep. And we don't prioritize it enough here.
Yeah,
just
I
don't.
agree. I think that the psych industry, you know, the psychologists and psychiatrists and mental health specialists have tapped into this long ago. And it's good that I love it when people like you mention it, because the connection isn't made enough with people outside of that industry unless they have these tangential things like you've got with fasting. But I've known plenty of therapists that won't even consider a patient until they've had a full week of sleep, because there's just so many psychological disorders and disruptions and issues that come about that can just be absolutely solved, making their work much more achievable and measurable when you know, conquer sleep. I mean, it's still used as a form of torture, sleep. And so,
The thing is,
in perspective,
yeah, most I like from being sick over the past, few years, when you walk into a doctor's office, yeah, they'll give you the prescription in about like 9 minutes of their time, but they'll also say, drink lots of liquids and get some rest. Like things that are free. I love it. Like fasting is free. Sleep is free, resting is free, like all these things that we need, vitamin D, get some sun, it's all a resource for you to get healthy. The other stuff is it's there for assistance, but the vital things that we need, we all have access to, and it's all at no cost.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people who have written in asking about, so there's a ton of tools and apparatus, and the market's exploding right now with it. Are there
Yeah.
any things that you use, from ketone strips to, there's rings, there's glucose meters, there's blood ketone, there's a breath thing now. Do you use any of
Ah,
those
I've
things
seen that.
to gauge your states? Do you prescribe any of them to your clients, or what do you think about that? The tech environment.
So I do think that there's power in tracking. I do think that there's a level of a condition where someone has to be in order to be that mindful of, their ketones or their calories or their sleep. Anything right now can be tracked, right? um but I want to make sure that one of the things that was a really like eye-opening, like mind-blowing moment is when I started to get really in touch with like my own self, like who I was, like listening to, we always say like listen to your body, but like when is the last time, like do you even know what it sounds like? We don't have enough practice of that. So we do lean on these tools to kind of do it for us, but we can kind of do that ourselves. And so I tell people to try to go without the tracking, because it is popular, it's sensationalized. It's like, oh my God, I need a breath thing to kind of tell me my metabolism. It's like, yeah, you like, I think you're capable of it, without it. But I do think that some people kind of need that type of surveillance, that self-surveillance that keeps them accountable if they're not doing it with somebody. So it's like, okay, well, if you don't do anything else, then yes, get the breathalyzer metabolism thingamajig. Um, but I try to get people to kind of rise above that and say, like, I know my body. Yes, you can go see a specialist, but at the end of the day, like you live in your own skin and you should be able to take cues from your body. One of the things that I challenged myself with about a year ago was being able to tell time. So through a fasted state, through a very well rested state and trying to keep stress at bay, like I would shoot out the time, like whatever time it was. And I would be like within minutes of what time it was. And I just found that fascinating. Like, you don't really kind of need a clock. The clock is just a numerical measurement. Same thing with the scales, same thing with the watches, you know, the breathalyzer, the sleep beds. And you don't, yes, you can use them, but your body is so much smarter than these tools. It's using your own system to kind of build it. So you are capable of, achieving these goals and tracking your own just by living.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Tapping back into like circadian rhythm issues and things,
Absolutely.
aspects and capabilities is awesome. Our final question is in regards to like, we talked about this a little earlier with medical practitioners and GPs on a lot of different levels. Any type of medical person that you see, how would you advise one talks to these individuals? The community is still kind of divided. You know, a lot of MDs or doctors, and we've talked about this a little bit. We've had professionals on this series that speak to the idea that they're there to kind of treat disease and suffering, and a lot of them are under educated when it comes to this, and therefore they're getting, you know, these kind of scary warnings. Other doctors are very well equipped to handle questions about fasting. But how would you personally advise someone introduce it to their doctor? Would you say don't unless you're having issues, or how would you kind of advise your clients to go about it?
Well, I always recommend that people inform their medical practitioner, their doctor, to say like, hey, this is something that I heard about. Like, what do you think? I think that asking people's opinions are it's an awesome thing to get knowledge, even if that person disagrees or agrees with you. I do think when it comes to support, they certain doctors might be incentivized to tell you certain things or to not tell you certain things.
Yeah.
And so when I first came into this industry, I was, very angry. I'm like, I know that doctors don't get any sort of commission return or anything by telling people to do things that don't cost money. Like, they are incentivized to sell you on prescription drugs because you have big pharma coming out and kind of whining and dining them. So I was like, I know, like, nobody told me about this because it's, it's free and they don't make any money. But at the end of the day, you have to be your own advisor. So as much as possible, especially in connection with a doctor. So if you have like lab work or vitals that you're trying to monitor, let's just say you're trying to get your blood pressure down to a certain number, like, mention it to your doctor. Tell your doctor you are going to try this. Let them know, like, what are some things that you need to watch out for in order to bring that down. It's more of an informant type of conversation than asking for permission, because again, I think that we have to start to assume the mastery position of our bodies before a doctor. I absolutely value all the education and all the history that they have with multiple clients, within their practice. But you also have to know that you are good, like, your body, your knowledge, your brain, you're telling them how to treat you, not the other way around. They don't go home with you. And so I do think a partnership and an informant type of partnership to kind of bounce stuff off of is most ideal. But I do know that that's not the case with most people's relationship with their doctor, especially being like a Black woman. My doctor told me, like, women shouldn't try it. Your hormones are going to get messed up. And I was like, well, I'm going to try it anyway. And if they do, then I know where to come back to in order to help me. But within reason, I don't let people dictate things for me. I try to be my own guinea pig, because at some point somebody was their guinea pig.
Yeah, I agree. And becoming your own health advocate is a hard thing to do. With the advent of it, hopefully it gets a little bit easier, but it's always hard to be on the flagship, or, on with the advent of new knowledge and things of this nature. Like you said, Dr. Jason Fung, you have people who've produced wildly respected works, and you still have a large part of the industry that has been revered as kind of godlike, for the better part of the last 100 years in this country. And so I think that, like you're saying, kind of really reascribing that role before you share it is really important too. I always tell people, particularly women that I speak to, I'm like, why would you call yourself your doctor so-and-so when they call you by their first name? She's Betty and you're Patricia, or she's Dr. So-and-so and you are like, master so-and-so if you have a master's degree. Or
yes.
But kind of getting those power plays, like, there's a lot of different areas long before you introduce like what you're doing with your health and what they can kind of help you with.
Absolutely.
Paradigm, which I'm quite passionate about, and that's why we just went on a tangent. Kate, we are out of time today, and I just want to say thank you so much for your insight.
Absolutely.
I think it sounds like such a great thing, and it sounds like you're doing these 3-day fasts a great deal. So I know that this episode might not go live before the next one on the 28th, but hopefully there'll be ones following that people can jump on your website and learn about.
Yeah, as much as people, want to fast with me, I'm open to hosting them. I used to host them twice a summer. Now I'm up to 4 times a summer, and I think I'm probably going to carry that into fall. So definitely go to Good Girl Gone OMAD to learn more.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, beyond Good Girl Gone OMAD, her podcast is of the same name, Good Girl Gone OMAD. You can find her on Instagram and Facebook under Good Girl Gone OMAD as well. Again, I love that consistency across the board. Thank you for joining us today. And
It's a pleasure.
yeah. And for everyone who is now listening, we've been speaking with Kay Dorelus. She's a podcast host and health coach. Again, her website, www.goodgirl.com. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And until we speak again next time, remember to stay safe, eat clean and responsibly when you do eat, and always bet on yourself. Sancha.